This guide covers how to unlock all traversal or mobility items in Act 1 of Hollow Knight Silksong in a very efficient manner. After following this guide on a new playthrough, you should have everything you need to fully explore all areas that can be accessed before leaving Act 1 and starting Act 2. As usual, useful timestamps can be found in the video description. We will start with the Silkspear. This first part might be a bit unnecessary for many, but just in case, let's start at the very beginning and make our way through the tutorial section. You can skip ahead if you've already made it to Bone Bottom. I'll also be giving some useful info for new players that haven't played the first Hollow Knight in this section. In any case, we will bind to our pin, then use some of our basic abilities to reach the first bench. There are a couple of secrets along the way, so feel free to explore a little to find some free shell shards and rosaries. These are the game's two forms of currency. Shell shards are a lesser currency that can be used as a donation for certain quests and to refill offensive tools that are found later in the game. Rosaries, on the other hand, are the main form of currency that are used to purchase items from vendors, and they are dropped upon death. They can be reacquired by going back to where you died and striking the cocoon there, but if you die a second time before getting your rosaries back, they will be lost forever. We'll find our first bench in the ruined chapel, and benches are where we can rest to recover health. Sitting at a bench will also manually save the game and set it as our spawn point for if and when we die. A short distance ahead of the bench, we will encounter our first boss, the Moss Mother. We can take advantage of Hornet's dive ability to get in some extra attacks. Also, we can build up our reserve of silk by getting in successful strikes. Then, when the silk meter is full and glowing, we can hold the appropriate input to restore up to 3 health. Be sure that you have a few seconds to get the heal off, as getting struck while mid-heal will result in taking damage, failing to heal, and even losing the reserve of silk that was being used at the time. After defeating the Moss Mother, we can move out of the chamber to the west and ascend up the large bead rope. Moving to the east, following a short cutscene and interaction with an NPC, we will get the Great Citadel objective, which is our primary objective for Act 1. It will be some time before we get around to doing that, but for now, we can move east into the first town of Silksong, Bone Bottom. There is a bench here that we should rest at to set a new spawn point. Feel free to take some time and speak with the various inhabitants of Bone Bottom, one of which is a merchant. Once we are ready, we can move east into the Marrow region. We will need to move through the Marrow going up and to the east. There are a few shortcuts that we can unlock along the way. Feel free to explore on your own, but for the purposes of this guide, I'm going to take a direct path to the boss chamber. Several enemies will spawn in this chamber, and they will need to all be defeated before we can drop down to a new chamber. There, we can move a short distance west to unlock a gate leading back to Bone Bottom. In any case, we will then need to move east and past an offering bowl that can be interacted with to unlock a fancy bench. This will take rosaries to do, and it's not necessary in my opinion. In any case, we will need to move further east into the Marrow zone, then up into the west where possible. This should take us to a new chamber where there are multiple temporary platforms of which we will need to scale. At the top west corner of this chamber is a path to a new area where we should hear an NPC singing. We'll move west, hitting a small lever where needed to unlock the path forward, and can grab some free rosaries and shell shards as we loop back around. We should eventually meet an NPC named Shakra, and this bug will sell us our first few maps and map making supplies. While these items aren't absolutely necessary, the maps and the compass tool definitely make navigation in the game a lot easier. Fortunately, there is also an early game rosaries farm that we can set up here to earn some money, and let me just clarify that this is completely optional. Up and to the west of Shakra is a path to the Moss home zone. We'll need to move west along the elevated platform, getting past a couple of pesky projectile shooting bugs. The projectiles can be destroyed with Hornet's attacks. This should bring us to a lever that we can hit to open a path up below that we can drop down into. We'll then need to move to the east in this new area, staying in the elevated section of it. Past a couple of enemies, we will enter a secluded chamber with a bench that we can rest at. There's also a lever in here that will open a shortcut back to the map vendor when struck. Now let's go over the farming loop for getting rosaries, starting at the bench. Also, if you have the magnetite brooch, then now would be a good time to equip it. Starting from this bench, we will move west into Moss Home. There are two relatively easy enemies to defeat here, each giving 5 rosaries. We can then drop down to the bottom floor of this area, where there are 3 more enemies to defeat as we move towards the bottom east exit. Once out, it's just a few jumps to loop back around to the bench that we started at. We can then rest and repeat this process as many times as we need to in order to get rosaries for early game items. You get 25 rosaries every 30 seconds or so, so it's not an incredible source of them, but it's a decent enough rate for early game items. I did this for about 10 minutes off camera to get enough rosaries for all of Shakra's current inventory. This will allow me to show all of you where I am at in the game at specific points throughout this guide. In any case, to get the Silkspear ability, we will need to move up and to the west from Shakra into Moss Grotto. At the top west corner of this chamber is the entrance to a new chamber, and once there, we will need to move far east, avoiding several traps along the way. We will then need to go up and to the west to reach a Weaver altar, inspection of which will unlock the Silkspear ability. This ability requires silk to use, and it can cut through thick sections of webbing to grant access to new areas, such as the small area to the west where a frayed rosary string can be obtained. If we drop down and move to the east of here, we will find another set of webs that we can spear through. Before dropping down, we can go to the chamber to the east, and there we will find a bench to rest at, as well as a new shaman NPC, which will give us the berry picking wish or side quest. That quest is beyond the scope of this video, but I do suggest completing it on your own time. In any case, the last thing we will need to do in this video is unlock fast travel. For that, we will move west of the Shaman NPC, then drop down to the chamber below and move further west. This will bring us back to a chamber we've previously been in. We can drop down to the bottom level and move east to get back towards the Shakra NPC. You can drop down there and use the bench if you want a closer spawn point for this next boss fight. In order to unlock fast travel, we will need to follow the sign and move east. We'll need to first free the Bell Beast with our Silkspear ability, then defeat it in a fairly difficult boss battle. The Bell Beast's attacks are fairly punishing, dealing 2 damage each. However, it only has 3 attack variations, and they are telegraphed by the type of ground rumbling that occurs just before it emerges. If the plume of the rumbling is medium height and wide, then the beast will emerge and charge. This is the easiest setup for us to get in some damage. If the plume is just as wide but significantly taller, then the beast will perform a leap attack. We'll want to stay under it and wait for it to land, then get in a couple of strikes. Finally, if the plume is narrow, then the Bell Beast will briefly emerge and throw out a couple of bells that bounce out into the sides. This move is tricky to get any damage in on, and you will have to watch out for the bells. Phase 2 is fairly similar to Phase 1, but with the addition of an extra bell drop with each of the beast's 3 major moves. After defeating the Bell Beast, we can interact with the floating orb, then go through a small platforming section before interacting with a second floating orb. We will consume a silk heart, which gives us a small regenerative capacity for silk. Returning to the Bellways, we can jump up and to the right to unlock our first fast travel post. This will allow us to fast travel between here and the town of Bone Bottom. We can then move to the east and strike the lever in the next chamber to unlock a new bench, as well as the path into a brand new region of the game. Our next target is the Swift Step. We will begin at the bench that is just east of the Marrow Bellways or fast travel station. From there, we'll have to move further east into the Marrow zone. The first horizontal chamber has some platforming that involves spike pits and crumbling platforms. There is an upper area in the second horizontal chamber that can be reached by dive attacking off these bouncy red flowers, but for our purposes we can just take the bottom route to the vertical chamber. Once there, we can drop down a few levels and follow the sign east into a jail. There, we will find a free bench to rest at, which will serve as our next checkpoint. From here, we will need to move further down and then east out of the Marrow and into a new region, Deep Docks. Watch out for spike pits, falling rocks, and lava as you make your way through this stretch. As we enter Deep Docks, we will see a sign pointing towards a bench. This bench requires Rosaries to unlock, and I found it a bit unnecessary, so I skipped unlocking it, and instead, I just continued east and followed the sound of Shakra singing to get the Deep Docks map. In order to get the Swift Step ability, we will then need to make our way up and to the east through the major portion of Deep Docks. Our first mini destination will be an exit path at the northeast corner of this chamber, and we'll need to hit a lever in order to reach it. In this next chamber, we will then need to move east, jumping along the hot coal surfaces to avoid taking burn damage. At the far end of the chamber, we can hop up some rocks and strike an explosive core to open up the path into the next chamber. There is another bench here that we can spend Rosaries to unlock. There is also a boss or rush encounter ahead, and while it isn't too difficult, it may be worth buying the bench just in case. From the bench, we will need to move back west into the previous chamber, then go all the way up and then to the east to reach a narrow corridor. Moving west there will bring us to the boss chamber, where multiple waves of enemies will need to be defeated. Once that is done, we can move west and drop down into a new chamber. Watch out for spike pits and strike the explosive core at the southeast corner to unlock a shortcut back to the bench. Then move to the southwest exit. With a few jumps, we can reach an altar and interact with it to unlock the Swift Step ability. Next up is the Drifter's Cloak. We will begin at the altar where the Swift Step ability is unlocked in Deep Docks. From there, we'll need to move west and back towards where Shakra, the map seller NPC, can be found in this area. There is a flea that you can grab along the way for a side quest, but I'll just be taking the most direct route for the purposes of this guide. We will move east of Shakra into the next chamber, and while this next step is optional, I do recommend it for several reasons. If we follow the bench sign and drop down into the nearby chamber, we can go along a path to reach a boss room where several waves of enemies need to be defeated. It is slightly challenging, but very doable. As a reward for completing this challenge, we will gain access to a free bench that is near the next boss. We also unlock a vendor that sells some useful items, including a very powerful offensive tool, the Sting Shard. I didn't buy it on this playthrough, but know that it is very useful in a lot of boss fights. In any case, from the free bench, we will need to move back up into the previous chamber, then make use of our Swift Step ability to unlock the boss chamber to the east. There, we will encounter Lace, a nimble adversary that will make sure that we learn how to use the dodge function of Swift Step in order to survive. After defeating Lace, we can move east into the next chamber and strike the lever to unlock a bench and the nearby gate. We're going to move a fair distance east into the new region Far Fields, until reaching the Bellways or fast travel station for it. If you do not have at least 30 Rosaries, then I recommend defeating some of the humanoid foes along the way, which will drop a decent amount. In any case, we will need to make use of both the sprint and air dash functions of our Swift Step ability in order to get up to and stay on the upper path of this large chamber. Exiting from the top east of the chamber will lead us straight to the Bellways station for Far Fields, which will also have a very useful bench. If you have less than 80 Rosaries, be sure to unlock the bench first, as we can use it as a checkpoint for another Rosaries farm. This is optional, but if you want more Rosaries, you can move west from the bench and back into the previous large chamber. Move along the top platforms until passing by 2 explosive clusters, then drop down and defeat the Scar Scout to the west, which will drop 13 Rosaries. Then move east and use the Silkspear ability once or twice on the paired Scar Scout and Scar Stalker. It takes a little bit of practice, but all 3 of these foes can be taken down fairly quickly for just over 50 Rosaries. You can then save and quit the game to quickly return to the nearby bench and repeat the process as many times as is necessary to buy whatever you need. In any case, I did it several times off camera so that I could make some purchases in the future. Starting from the Far Fields Bellways, we can unlock the Bellway station if we haven't already, then move out to the west. Dropping a short distance down while hugging the eastern wall will bring us to a new chamber where Shakra can be found. After getting the Far Fields map, we can now get a much better idea of where we are and where we need to go. Moving back out to the west, we'll drop down once more and then head east again. Watching out for the lava, we can platform our way east through a long chamber, then in the next chamber up to the hut of the Seamstress. There is a free bench here to use, and speaking with the Seamstress will also get us the Flexile Spines quest, which we will need to complete for the Drifter's Cloak. To do that, we can move out of the hut and to the chamber down and east. The enemy we are looking for are the Hokers. We will need to strike it once, avoid the spines it shoots out, then quickly move around and strike the ones within our reach in order to harvest them. We'll need to obtain a total of 25 spine cores in this manner. There are 3 easily accessed Hokers in this area, which I will go ahead and show now. There are also some free Rosaries up and to the west of the 3rd Hoker. It's likely that you won't have all 25 spines just from these 3 Hokers, and in that case, just leave the chamber and re-enter it to have all of them respawn. Then repeat the harvesting process until you have 25 spine cores. Once we have all 25 spine cores, we can return to the Seamstress hut and turn in the spine cores to complete the quest. Doing so will get us the Drifter's Cloak, which can be used to hover in midair and also to ride up wind shafts found throughout Farloom. Moving on, let's get the Cling Grip ability next. We'll start at the hut of the Seamstress in Far Fields just after unlocking the Cloak. From there, we'll move west, retracing our steps back towards the Bellways station for Far Fields. Our journey there will be interrupted by the 4th Chorus boss, which will give us a chance to test out our new Drifter's Cloak ability. It is useful for avoiding the boss's horizontal swipe attacks, and in addition, we can use it in the final phase of the fight to ride up the airstreams on either side of the boss and hit the 2 explosive cores. Doing so will instantly end the boss battle. That taken care of, we can go ahead and move west, then ride up the airstreams to return to the Bellways station and rest at the bench there. From here, we will need to move back out into the large vertical tube area and ride a series of airstreams upward. There are multiple sections where we will need to strike explosive cores in order to open the way forward. When we reach a closed metal gate, we will need to follow the nearby bench sign into the eastern chamber. You can spend Rosaries to enter the structure here, but it will lock back up upon exiting. There's also a vendor in there, so be sure to bring plenty of Rosaries with you to buy him out on your first visit. In any case, we will need to move east, then loop up and move west along the top of this chamber to get above that pesky metal gate. Hitting the nearby lever will open the gate, allowing us to progress further up the vertical tube. After hitting a few more explosive cores and a lever, we should be able to ascend all the way up and out of the tube, arriving in Greymoor. It's not absolutely necessary, but it is a good idea for us to move a short distance to the east to reach Shakra. There is a free bench nearby, and we can buy the Greymoor Map. We will then begin the long journey of moving west through Greymoor towards the next major zone. After passing through the cave with various pilgrim-style enemies, we will arrive at the halfway home. There is a free bench here that we can use, and while we are here, we may as well go upstairs and speak with New. This NPC will give us a quest to defeat the various bugs in Farloom, as well as the Hunter's Journal to record our progress. We still need to journey further west from the halfway home. Doing so will bring us to a small arena where we will need to defeat a few enemies, but this is a relatively easy challenge. Continuing west, we will want to unlock a couple of shortcuts, as it is likely that we will be running back a few times for the upcoming boss fight. Upon entering the tower structure, we will need to make our way up and past a few scissor-wielding bugs, as well as a spinning wheel. We can then move through the lower door of the two to the west, and then descend through this area and break open a shortcut along the way. Dropping all the way down, we will then want to hit a lever to the east to open a major shortcut back this way before moving further west. Follow the signs pointing towards a town to reach the next major obstacle in our way. It's a very difficult boss called the Moorwing. I won't sugarcoat it, this boss took me at least 10 attempts to finally beat. I'm going to show the return path back to this boss in case of death, just to make sure no one is wasting time by taking the long way back. In any case, I'll let this boss fight play out on my successful attempt, and I have some notes to give on phase 2 of the fight. In Phase 2, all of Moorwing's attacks receive substantial upgrades, and it has one additional move as well. The flurry of attacks with its legs actually doesn't receive any substantial upgrade, so it's still one of the best opportunities to get in damage. Then there is this new move with 2 blades being launched simultaneously, and so long as you stay under Moorwing and time your jumps right, it's also a good chance to get in some damage. The swoop attack is now followed by a single blade launch, so watch out for that. And finally, the blade launch attack now involves 2 blades. The second blade curves up earlier than the first blade and actually circles back down to strike the ground. This is the most problematic move, and I recommend just getting far away from Moorwing whenever it is telegraphed. Fun fact, this fight actually doesn't occur here if you completed the Flea quest line and travel with them to get here for the first time. In any case, after defeating the Moorwing, we can move west into the haunted Bellheart. Following a cutscene, we can sit down at the bench to rest. Another fun fact, if you exit the game while sitting at this bench and then load back in, you will be temporarily trapped in the strands of silk like the other NPCs. Now, we don't yet have the map for Bellheart, but we just need to move west until reaching the next area, Shellwood. From there, we will need to move up and through this large chamber in a sort of S shape, going back and forth as we make our way up. Our goal is to eventually reach the top west exit. We will then need to drop down to the west to enter a boss chamber where we will have to fight off multiple waves of enemies. The worst ones are the stick bugs, and I recommend storing up silk to hit them with a couple of Silkspears, which should dispatch them quickly. Once all waves have been defeated, we can move out to the west, then go up a series of platforms to reach a purchasable bench. This bench costs 60 Rosaries to permanently activate, but it will serve as a checkpoint for 2 separate boss fights, so it's well worth the investment. We still don't have the map for this area, but we are about to solve that issue. Moving down and to the west of this bench, we can enter a new chamber and ride a lift all the way down. We can then move through the bottom west exit to reach a new chamber where Shakra is waiting. Both the maps for Bellheart and Shellwood are available for purchase, and I bought both of them before continuing west. Ignore the signs pointing towards the bottom western exit and instead move up the nearby platforming section, nail bouncing off the white flowers to ascend. Our goal is to reach the top east exit of this chamber. We will then move further up and east, going through the first exit that we see. There is a side quest item at the top of this chamber, but for the purpose of this guide, we will just continue moving east. We'll go up and further east in the next chamber, then activate and use the lift that is near the top east exit. This lift will serve as a shortcut, bringing us directly to that bench that we unlocked earlier. To reach the next major boss from the bench, we'll ride up the newly opened lift, then go through the eastern exit. Moving through this short platforming section will get us to the top west exit, which then leads directly to the boss chamber. Here, we will need to defeat Sister Splinter. The actual boss is not too difficult, just quickly destroy the splinters she makes so that we have enough room to maneuver and avoid her simple attack pattern while getting in plenty of our own hits. The only thing that makes the fight tough are the ants she spawns, which are super dangerous and annoying to deal with. The best way to take them out, in my opinion, is to hit them with Silkspears or a couple of ranged offensive tools, assuming you have those at your disposal. It could just be me, but I thought this fight was a cakewalk compared to Moorwing. After defeating Sister Splinter, we can move further west. We'll need to drop down briefly before moving back up and towards the top west exit. In the next chamber, we will then move further west, break through several vines, then needle pogo our way up through a somewhat precarious platforming section. Our goal is to eventually reach the top east exit of this chamber. This will bring us to a final chamber where we can interact with an altar to unlock the Cling Grip or wall jump ability for Hornet. With it, we can make our way up and to the east to enter a new chamber. There's a platforming section here that leads to a side quest item up and to the east. However, if we just want to return to the previous bench, we can move straight east and exit via the hole in the ground. It's then just a short walk back to the bench from here. Finally, we can now get the Needolin. We'll start at the bench near the Sister Splinter boss fight. From there, we can either ride the elevator to the east up, or we can wall jump our way up instead. However it's managed, we will need to move through the northeast passage, then all the way east in the next chamber. There will be a new area that we can access by wall jumping up to piles of bells, then smacking our way through them. Here we will need to move down into the east, avoiding or otherwise dealing with various new enemy types. We will eventually need to move west and down, and between two winged firms we should find a hidden wall that can be broken through. Just beyond it is a hole, but we will want to jump over that for now and move further west, through another hidden wall. There is a side quest item in this area, but for our purposes, this is just a shortcut back towards our last bench that we need to open up. We can do this by breaking some vines at the west end of the chamber. Feel free to heal at the bench if necessary, then return to the last chamber and move east back through it. Dropping down a couple of holes and moving east will bring us to the next major boss fight, the Widow. This boss is definitely up there with the likes of Moorwing in terms of difficulty. Fortunately, not all of his attacks deal double damage, but enough of them do. There is also quite a bit going on at any given time, so this fight follows a death by 1,000 cuts pattern. To make matters worse, just when you think you've won, you're actually just starting Phase 2. Phase 2 is a lot more frantic at first, but Widow's attack pattern is actually a lot more predictable. He will drop vertical or diagonal bells a few times, then perform a flurry attack. Once you get dialed into his rhythm, Phase 2 becomes a lot easier. All that said, once we finally defeated Widow, we plunge our needle and bind to unlock the Needolin ability. We will then need to make our way through a short platforming section to exit a dream sequence. After waking up, we can hit the nearby lever to unlock a bench, and this will also free the Bellheart town from the curse that kept them incapacitated. There are still more mobility and traversal items that can be obtained, but only after starting Act 2 of the game. For now, you can feel free to fully explore the Act 1 regions of Farloon with the confidence that if you are unable to access an area, it is because it is not meant to be accessed until after progressing into Act 2 of the game. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me in the comments where I will do my best to help. If you want to see more great content, you can head over to my channel, and if you're new, consider subscribing. You're helping me feed my cat. Her name's Marshmallow. Have a great day if you're here today, have a great Sunday, and a great week. And as always, thanks for watching.